If you're a real estate agent or business owner looking to level up, not just your income, but your lifestyle, especially when it comes to travel, then this episode is for you. My guest today, Julian Rivera, went from DJing events to building a real estate empire with over 30 rental doors and hundreds of agents under his leadership. And along the way, he figured out how to turn business expenses into nearly free travel utilizing credit card points and miles. Even if you're not a business owner, Julian is living proof that everyone starts somewhere. He went from a sub 500 credit score to building financial freedom through smart strategies and consistency. In this episode, we blend mindset, planning, and education, so you'll hear both advanced and beginner friendly strategies, regardless if you're just getting started with points and miles or ready to take things to the next level. If you're tired of leaving free travel on the table, then it's time to level up and revolutionize your next journey. Welcome to the Revolutionizing Your Journey podcast. My name is DeAndre Coke. I am super excited for the guest that we have today. Before I introduce him, just a quick reminder for all of you that are watching on YouTube. Remember that we do have our audio only quick hits on Fridays, which are all the more up to date travel news, points and miles news that go out through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else that you get the audio only version of the podcast. So now moving on, our guest today is someone that I hold dear to my heart. My boy, DJ Julian Rivera, as I've known him over the years, he is much more than a DJ. He's a business mogul, a professional real estate guru. He is a boss in all sense of the word, but also one of my best friends. If you remember the episode where Taryn and I talked about our stay at the Hyatt Zilara in Jamaica for a wedding, it was his wedding we were at. I was one of his best men, and he is going to be one of my best men and officiant at our wedding in the Dominican Republic in a few months. So I'm so excited to chop up points and miles. Julie and I got into the points and miles game around the same time over a decade ago. As he calls it, I took it to a Harvard level. He kind of stayed in the community college level, but we have both elevated over the years. So Julian, welcome to the show.
So DeAndre, first off, thank you for having me on the show. I just want to say everything you just said, I'm going to transcribe and put in my About Me section on my Instagram. Is that cool?
That works.
Perfect. Thanks for having me on the show, though, dude. Good to see you.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So, Julian, let's get a quick background on you. I know I kind of hit them with the 100,000 foot overview, but can you give a little bit of a background on your business journey and where you are overall in the space of like, what is it that you do? Because I think it's going to be really important for today's episode, because my goal was really to chop it up with you from a conversational standpoint and talk through where points and miles fits in for someone that blends their personal life and their business life, especially in the real estate world. And my goal is that those that are in real estate and real estate agents can use this episode as motivation of why they should be using points and miles in their credit cards for expenses to help them fuel their personal travels, but not just limit this obviously to real estate agents, because it's really applicable to anyone that's a business owner. And of course, the typical consumer, those that don't have a business as well. But can you just give a little bit of a background on yourself, your business, is what you do, kind of how'd you develop this business empire that you've been building over the years?
Of course, man. So the main thing, as you see on my shirt right here, is getting in the room. That's like my motto. This is my shirt. This is my brand. But getting in the room has really gotten me where I'm at. So like DeAndre was saying, I'm a DJ to the core. I'm a radio host. I did that for an extremely long time, since high school. But that allowed me to get into a room about a lot of other people I respected. And everybody needed a DJ. Everybody needed an entertainment, whether it was corporate function, wedding function, or whatever the case may be. So that was my kind of the step in the door. I've always been invested in real estate in some way, shape, or form. I've always been invested in business. I deem the word the entreploy for a long time, because we have the hustle culture that's created here in America. Everyone has a day job and a side hustle. So let's just say this. So real estate was kind of something I thought of was just okay. I didn't really know much about it, but I was in radio for a very long time. So DeAndre and I actually met at an event a long time ago, and he told himself he had to meet one person before the end of that event. This is when he was starting his journey. But that person turned out was me. I'm like, who's this guy talking to me? right? This is when I was in radio. This is when I was running all the marketing for all the radio stations and stuff for a very long time. This is when I was the entreploy because I always had another business I was involved in, running an entertainment company. I had 27 venues at one point in time, over 50 entertainers working on a consistent basis. And it was up and down, really the Hampton Roads area, but we did have markets in DC, Richmond, and northern North Carolina that we worked a lot. So from a contractual standpoint, a lot of that stuff is very common when it ended up relating to other businesses. And during that time, I was using credit card points and I was using that for other business expenses as well because we got to travel a lot, you know? But at the end of my radio career, I had a plan of bowing out and going all in on my businesses. At one point in time, I had about 6 businesses that I owned. They were all doing well. Financially, we were doing 6x outside of what I was getting on a day job. And I'm just like, why am I still showing up here? I don't need to do that anymore. The goal is here and I just needed to bow out. So in January 31st, 2020, that was my day that I retired from corporate America. But we all remember what the hell happened a month after that, right? It was one of our good friends over here, begins with a C, ends with a D, COVID, right? The pandemic stopped everything. And one thing it definitely stopped was the entertainment and hospitality industry. And that was my industry at the time. That was my main industry at the time. Luckily, I had other ancillaries. I had a few restaurants, had a few children education centers, had a few other things going on at the time that were still rolling, but my main bread and butter stopped. But my goal bowing out was to get heavier into real estate. I bought my first property in 2016 and my next investment property shortly after that. And I was slow rolling into that, but 2020 was a blessing to me. That's the only thing I can really say. And looking it back is the glass was half full the entire time, even though we thought the world was ending. So during that time, I went all in on real estate. Fast forward now to 2025. I'm one of the owners of Iron Valley Real Estate in Norfolk. I'm one of the partners of the overall Iron Valley Real Estate in Hampton Roads with 7 locations. Norfolk office, right around 70 agents. Totality of the agents that we have in the entire Hampton Roads is right around under 400 agents. We serve more active duty and veterans in the community than our next 3 competitors. I'm not going to say who they are, but we do it a way that we make sense. We remix real estate to make sense for the everyday person, because the American dream still is to own real estate. So to know that we have so many offices, to know that we have so many families that we've impacted in a positive way, that right there is leading by example, because if the client wins, we win by default. So as me personally, second year in a row, voted number 1 realtor in the Hampton Roads market. I'm happy to say I can say that, but by Coastal Virginia Magazine, that's won the Diamond Award multiple years in a row. Basically, the highest award you can achieve in a row. I've won them, which is awesome, but it's not me. It's my entire team. It's the people that allow me to even help them when they want to buy, sell, invest, or do anything like that. Me personally, again, I have a little over 30 doors that I have personally in my investment portfolio. I've accomplished over 15 flips thus far, and I just started doing flips a little over a year ago. I have a few other owner financing options and other plays that are in the works now just because I'm in the game, but it's because I'm in the room. I remember getting the room. So circling back to me being a DJ and DeAndre saying that he's not just a DJ, he's XYZ. I get a joke that they call me DJ Do Everything because I like to do a little bit of everything, but I still DJ. I still host. I do a lot of events. I have a podcast that you'll see DeAndre on as well that we do too. But the goal is really putting the client first. When the client wins, we win by default. And that should really be in any industry. I don't care what you're in. That's what you should lead by. And also leading by example when you're in a leadership position. And with points, we'll get into that in a minute. It's affected me in the entertainment world and in the real estate world vitally. And my motto is real estate, investments, events. And we'll talk about that as we keep going.
Absolutely. I think that was a perfect summation, Julian. I know people are like, why would DeAndre go into a room and say, I got to meet one person? Well, the short answer to that is Julian and I, we met when I had a very fledgling practice. So I was still in the grind of like, I need clients, I need to meet people. And I'm thankful for meeting Julian, because as you can see, Julian, you've built a legacy, not just a legacy, but an empire, I should say. And I wanted you to give that background, and not for the audience, not to think, oh, why does he seem like he might be bragging about these awards, which he's not. It's more so setting the tone of there's a lot that's been accomplished, a lot of knowledge out there, a lot of understanding of businesses in multiple facets. And I think this is important to lay the groundwork on why being able to see the vision of points and miles can create clarity. Just like for me as a financial advisor, someone that works in understanding finance and financial planning, that adds some credibility when I say, hey, it's okay to put money on credit card or spend using credit cards to earn points and travel, because there's a credibility to what we can bring to the table. I think someone that understands business and transactions and relationships and all sorts of things brings that credibility as well. So let's get into the points and miles part of the conversation, Julian. Just kind of, can you talk through just why does it make sense for a business owner to think about utilizing their credit cards for travel and points and miles in a way that's different from how they're probably doing it now, as we know, with just racking up Amex points, Chase points, using the portal? Why in general should we be focused on earning points as opposed to maybe just cashback cards or whatever it may be as a business owner?
And you say this a lot, and I've seen every episode, by the way, that you've done. And you say this a lot in your journey because you can make points more valuable than the cash. You can turn it into actually being more value. You can turn $100 into $150 to $200 if you know what to do, or more. It's the strategy behind it. So yeah, cashback is dope. There's nothing wrong with that. But realistically, how can you stretch your dollar, especially in today's economy where everybody's trying to stretch it in some way, shape, or form? It's just the knowledge base, and having somebody like you and having a lot of these other resources that we have out there that you put out there. It's just the knowledge to ensure that you can turn a dollar into $3, but it's not the typical, money. You have to do it a certain way and understand and follow people like DeAndre to get there. And if you're in a business and you have the money and you're going to spend the 5 grand to 10 grand or whatever it is every month anyways, you might as well put it on something that's going to benefit you and or the business, because you're probably going to have to travel. You're probably going to have to do something that's going to require points in the near future, whether you know it or not yet. Just know that you have to just learn the strategy to get there. And that's why you're following this podcast. And that's why you listen to DeAndre and his resources and the other people you have in the show, because everybody has a different way to do it. So if you're not doing it, at least get in the game, and then you can figure it out as you go.
So, Julian, can you talk through what does your current strategy look like as at a high level? What are the cards that you're typically utilizing, you're putting your expenses on? And I know you have a number of businesses. And so have you been able to secure multiple cards for each business? Kind of tell the listeners more about like what your personal points and miles strategy looks like from both a personal standpoint and a business standpoint.
Yeah. So every one of our properties, so I'll talk about from my personal properties first off. So every property, when I say doors, it's not necessarily just single family homes. It's duplexes, triplexes, apartment buildings. So I can have one apartment building that has 30 doors. I have more than that, but I'm just saying the 30 plus doors, that's how we break it down. So let's just say that those 30 doors equates to 15 properties, just for this example. That means each one of those properties has an LLC. And the way that I break it down is that every LLC has a card. So every year I re-up on a card so I can take advantage of the points, because once you have businesses, you're going to get a lot of these offers in the mail. And sometimes those offers that you get specific for you are better than you can get online in other places. So let's just say, for example, I got an Amex Gold and it says I can get 150,000 points if I send $10,000 in 3 months. I'm going to spend the money. I know I'm going to spend the money in some shape or form. So instead of me doing that, I'm going to take advantage of the points. I might not use it on anything else, and then I'm going to cancel the card and then do it again. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because I want to take advantage of the points. So that's specifically just from an investment portfolio perspective, right? With properties. Now, if I'm going to do a flip, it's the same concept and it's more short term, but it's really the same play. I'm going to spend 10, 20, 30, 40 bands to do a flip anyway. I don't know the exact number off for it, but I know it's going to be enough to hit that goal at least. So maybe I get one or two and I do it that way. But then you're talking about percentages. Is there hard money on there? Is there holding costs? I mean, then you got to get into a whole nother play to see how it's going to make sense for you. But if you're going to make more money doing it and you have the money, you can pay it off every month, you just got to do it. It just makes more sense to be in the game that way. And everyone's afraid of credit cards in some way, shape, or form. I used to be. I mean, you're talking to a guy that had a sub 500 score at one point. Yes, I'm vulnerable. I put myself out there because now I wasn't perfect. I just wasn't paying my stuff. That's literally what it was when I'm in my early 20s, like super early 20s, like 2021. I'm 41 years old now. I've learned a lot over the past 20 years. It's just learning by doing. And most people just stay on the sidelines. So if I'm strategically doing that for real estate, any of my other businesses that I've always had, we'll talk about entertainment, same concept. I have 3 to 4 cards that I utilize specifically for my entertainment business on purpose that I know I can get better benefits from. Some consistent and some I just do a new one every 6 months or so because I want to take advantage of the points because they keep sending me offers. So if they're going to send me the offers, I'm going to do it because I'm going to spend the money. The hardest part for anybody, though, you just got to make sure you're keeping track of it. That's always going to be the hardest part.
And I love how you say that, because I think there's a few things also that I want to unpack and clarify for someone that might be newer to this world as they are hearing what you're saying. A few things. So A, you're talking about, you may sign up, get a business credit card specifically, and that business credit card, after you get the points, you talk about canceling it. So a couple things I want to make sure to clarify for a newer listener is, A, that cancellation, you want to come at least more than 12 months after getting the card. And I know, Julian, these are the things that you're doing, but I'm saying this as well. So just to make sure that there's, people that are here and they're like, oh, let me get the sign-up bonus and cancel a month later. No, because a lot of companies, especially like American Express, they'll claw those points back if you cancel within the first year of having that card. Now, one thing to note, some people are going to think, well, if I cancel a card, doesn't that impact my credit? On the personal side, if you're talking about cards that report to your personal credit, you want to try to avoid that as much as possible. But on business cards, it's not that impactful because most of these cards, although they do run your credit to get you approved for it, they don't actually show up on your credit report. So they don't affect your average credit length of history for many of them. Some of them actually do. And on the follow-up to that is on these business cards as well, is that you can actually have, as Julian said, you can get multiple offers. You file an LLC, all of a sudden, somehow Amex just knows when you have a new LLC that's tied to your name. I don't know how, but they happen to actually just know. And so when they do that, you get mailers all the time that says, hey, get this Amex Gold, get this Amex Platinum, 100,000, 150,000, 250,000 available points, which is very different because you could go online. Let's say you already have an Amex Business Platinum, you go online, try to apply. They might say you're not eligible for one for whatever reason, but you get an offer in the mail, use that little coupon code they give you, and it does. So there's levels and layers to this, absolutely. And so, Julian, you talk through having a multitude and you have multiples for each business. What do you find to be the best way to track all of these things? Or how do you make it, and for someone that has so many businesses, so many cards for each business, what resources or what tools or what do you use to make it easier to keep track of everything?
I don't necessarily say it's tools because you're better at a systematic approach than I am. And that's one thing I know about you because you're a personal friend of mine. With me, it's taking the time to understand I need to allocate an hour or two a month minimum to go through every statement to understand where I'm currently at. And that's the old school way to do it, but that's how my mind works. Obviously there's apps out there you can connect and link. It can give you the notifications. And yes, it can get you lined up and definitely set you up for success. But for me, the old school method is take the time, allocate the time, marry yourself to that time. There's no excuses, and log in to make sure that you're doing it at least once a month. I mean, I'd like to do it every other week just because that's where I'm at in my business. And now that I have an assistant, not everyone can do that. They're in a position where they can check it out and make sure I'm doing everything the right way as well. But plus, you want to make sure you're checking and doing everything the right way with your CPA, your bookkeeper, whoever you're having help you in the back end. And this is all learning by doing, guys. I'm far from perfect. The acronym FAIL lives in my daily routine. FAIL stands for first attempt in learning. So at least you're trying. You got to get out there and do it. But I log in and I check it at least 2 times a month on minimum just to see where I'm at. And I make sure that I'm doing the right things because that's the only way you can keep track of things. And again, that's going to be most people's cons is keeping track of everything. Now, payments, that's an easy thing. The payments, you set up on notifications, you know when you're going to pay it. If I'm spending $5,000 today, I'm paying $5,000 today. That's an easy thing because I know I'm not letting that roll over. Assuming that my due date isn't today and then tomorrow starts a new month, which we should always know and put on your calendar, when those days are. And if you have multiple cards from the same card company, you can call them and have all your cards happen on the same day to make your life easier. You can definitely do that. So if you didn't know that, call and do it. I learned that from DeAndre. And just make sure that you make it easy for your schedule because you're talking to a guy here that has 5 kids. I have multiple businesses. I'm busy. All right. But we all are. We all are busy. But the only thing that you don't want to be is be complacent. And then next thing you know, that hits your credit in the Dun & Bradstreet or on your personal. That's the last thing you want because you worked your ass off to get here.
Hey everyone, quick break from the episode. If you're enjoying the show, make sure you're subscribed on whatever platform you're listening on so you never miss an episode. And if you've gotten any value so far, it would mean the world if you left a quick rating or review. It helps more people discover the show and keeps us motivated to keep creating great content. Also, if you're feeling stuck or want help with points and miles, whether it's picking your first card, planning a big redemption, or even having someone book it all for you, we've got you covered. There's a link in the show notes to schedule a free points and miles consultation. Just fill out a quick questionnaire, tell us your goals, and we'll take it from there. And don't forget, our newsletter and private Facebook group are great ways to stay on top of breaking news, updated card offers, and tips that don't always make it into the podcast. You'll find those links in the show notes as well. Now, back to the episode. So someone listening to this could be like, man, obviously you're busy. Obviously there's a lot of moving pieces here. And you're being super intentional at this stage about how you're earning points, understanding opening up cards, getting a sign up bonus or a welcome offer, and kind of how that plays into everything. But my question for you, for maybe for someone that's a little bit newer, is did you jump into it with the level of intentionality as you have now, or did it start off as more of points was more of a bonus that just kind of happened and you worked your way into it? Because I think people are wondering, like, do I have to dive into the level of depth that I'm at or that you're at, or can I just, where do I start, right? So what would you say to that?
So the funny thing is, I actually started by accident. I didn't even know. And this is a shout out to my wife, Myra. I was spending cash and debit cards when I met her. And we've been together for 15 years, married for 8, and just had our wedding this past year. But I didn't know, I just really didn't know. And then when I was able to start getting credit cards again, and I still have the same one open to this day, it's a Capital One basic card, like $500 limit. Cause again, I was just paying stuff when I was 21, 22. I just didn't know what I was doing. But I have been banking with, still to this day, Bank of America. I have multiple banks now, but because I had the seniority with them since I was there since high school, they allowed me to open another credit card and got me like $1,500, but it was a cashback card. I didn't know what kind of credit card I was getting at the time. Okay. So then fast forward a few months, I was using my card a little bit more. I was just afraid, so I paid it off just by natural intuition. That wasn't even part of a strategy. And little did I know that was a strategy. So I was already doing that intentionally without knowing I was doing it for whatever the case may be. I just didn't want to pay 25% interest on myself. I didn't want to do that. So now over a few months, I scrolled down and I saw, wait, I got like a few $100 here. And then I started paying attention. Then I started to realize, then I started looking at the Credit Karmas, the Credit Sesames. All these apps started coming out around that time where we know it's not accurate, but at least it's a easy thing to log into and see I'm trending up. Because at that point, I could only go up. There was no going down at that point. So I keep going up, up, up. I'm like, all right. So then once I broke the 600 and 650 and 700 and 750 and 800, I'm like, I need to start applying for more cards. Because now I have car loans, I have house loans, I have other things that are affecting my credit in a positive way. And I'm making the payments. Most important, to make the payments. So then I just started opening up. But one thing I did is that then I opened up 2 more Bank of America cards. It was a travel rewards card, and then it was another cashback card because I was able to get like 25,000. This is the first time I ever was able to get that, like a high amount on a card. This was like late 20s. I'm like, damn right. So I did that knowing that I like to travel and knowing that I had a cashback card or reward one before, but I didn't really know. I didn't pay attention to what it was. But I got these 2. And then, dude, that just opened my eyes. So what am I not doing here? Because I have the money to pay for all the stuff that I'm buying. I'm not overextending myself. So I got in the game out of not paying attention and unintentionally just trying to make sure I can get my credit up so I could buy a house. That's really was my goal. And I knew getting a credit card, regardless what the line, would help me because there's not many other things that I can get to open my credit at the time. So if you're brand new out there, whoever you're banking with, like, yes, you can go to the points guy. Yes, you can listen to DeAndre. Yes, you can do all that stuff. And they give great tips on what's going to be accepted. But just go with who you're banking with and open a card there because they're probably going to accept you. And who cares if you have $100 a month credit limit? It doesn't matter. You're at least opening a line that you can start getting on-time payments for that will be part of your credit history that will affect you in the future so you can get bigger lines and more access and more access. Just don't overthink it. Just utilize what you have because everyone here probably has a bank somewhere. And if it's an OG institutional bank, a Bank of America, Navy Federal, Wells Fargo, whatever, they got resources for you. You don't have to reinvent the wheel because you're not the only one in that position.
And I think that's perfect advice for someone that maybe they've just came out of some credit repair, or they might be super, super young listening to this podcast and they don't have a huge amount of credit yet available. So they haven't been approved for a typical Chase Sapphire Preferred or Capital One Venture X or whatever it may be. Because while the vast majority of our listeners are going to be individuals that are, well, I have the statistics, I know they're 35 to 45, either business owners or well employed. There are people that listening that say, hey, I'd like to get there, but I don't know exactly where to start. Or I tried applying for this recommended Chase card or Amex card and I've gotten declined. And so there is always the option to get started by helping to grow your credit in the first place and making sure that you're positioning yourself for success from the get-go, which I think is important as well. So, Julian, you've mentioned you've had multiple personal cards. You started with a very small line, started getting bigger ones through your regular bank. Now you're opening up Chase and Amex cards all over the place for multiple businesses. Someone hearing this and hearing that you've got multiple businesses and multiple cards for multiple businesses is probably immediately thinking that the reaction that we get to those responses are two things. A, your credit score must be in shambles, and B, you must be carrying a lot of debt. Now, you've already clarified the point that you've been paying off. You charge $5,000, you pay off $5,000. You already clarified that piece. So I think it's really easy to say, no, you don't have debt. And one of the things to clarify or to add to that is the fact that if you are doing this and you are in the world of points and miles and you're carrying a lot of debt and you're not paying everything off, 100% the interest that you're paying on those cards is going to outweigh the value of points that you're getting. So it's really important to make sure that you do have processes in place, whether it's, like you said, Julian, taking an hour out of each month to make sure things are taken care of, making sure everything's paid off is highly important. But going back to my question, how have you seen all of the opening of these cards, both on the business side and personal side? How have you seen that impact your credit score?
I mean, it's just like anything else. When you open it up, when you're first starting and you're getting a business account, they're going to look at your personal credit. That's just what they have to do. They don't have anything else to base it on. And then even so, when you open up multiple LLCs and you have multiple cars underneath them, it takes a while for it to vest. So you have actual business credit that you can utilize that to keep going. So your personal credit is still very, very important. Now, mind you, when you open up any personal card, you're going to get hit with the hard inquiry, of course. But it's not that big. I mean, you get hit with it and it jumps back up. But when we used to be scared with it before, and I work with a lot of first time home buyers, when a mortgage company looks at that, they do soft pulls now. Back in the day, it used to always be hard pulls. So that's one thing that is still has kind of been painted out there. They're afraid to get that credit ran. But also, if somebody's looking to buy a house and they see a hard pull on there and they see multiple hard pulls by multiple different lenders, they don't utilize that against you if you're doing that within a certain time frame, because they know that you're shopping for the best rate. And that's what has to happen. Now, will they stay there for a few months? Of course they will. They're not going to drop off, but it's understanding how you're doing these hard pulls. Now, if I'm shopping around for 5 or 6 personal cards and they see all these hard pulls on me, it could affect me in a different way, but it's only temporary. I mean, you really want to focus on just opening as many as you can when the time is right, because right now opening one is a win. And people understand this, putting one into play will get you to that next phase. And when you carry debt, I mean, I have tons of debt. And when it comes down to my investment properties, but it's good debt because it's getting paid down, it has appreciation, has tax appreciation. That's a different type of debt. But if I'm holding debt on a credit card, which is the worst, in my personal opinion, the worst kind of debt to hold in the world, because the interest rate is the highest compared to anywhere else outside of maybe cash advance systems that you see places, don't do that. Don't spend what you don't have. If you have $5,000 to spend that month, you're spending it on that card and you're paying it off right away. If you have $100 to spend that month, that's all you're doing. Just people utilize the credit cards as a loan. We know it's a loan because it's a credit card, but you have to understand that loan is the most highest interest loan that you'll ever have in your life. I would rather you go to the bank and open up a personal loan if you need the money. Credit card is meant to be used in the right way, and they're betting on you to not pay it off so they can make their money. It's almost like the credit card companies are like a gambler. They're going to gamble on the individual by letting them borrow money from them, hoping they don't pay back so they can make a ton of bread off. That's really what it is. So if you can look at it that way, understanding that you're using it as a tool, you're not beating the system. You're using the system the way it's supposed to be used.
And so have you seen overall your score has gone up or down in the most succinct way possible?
I mean, up and stagnant, to be fair. So if I'm opening like 2 or 3 at a time, it's going to go down a little bit, of course, but I'm not talking hundreds of points here, people. It's very, very little. So in theory, it goes up. I mean, and fun fact, and correct me if I'm wrong here, DeAndre, but in the mortgage world, if you have a 720 or higher credit score, you're almost going to have the same interest rates to somebody that has almost 800 credit score. Now, is it the same in a credit card world? If I open a credit card, would I have comparable rates to somebody that has 800 and I have a 720, or is that far off?
It's pretty close. And so most cards actually, no matter how good your score is, especially some of these higher end cards like the Amex Platinum, the Chase Sapphire Reserve, some of these cards that are like the premier points and miles cards that have the highest fees attached to them, you could have a literal perfect credit score. Your interest rate on your credit card is still going to be 23%.
Right.
Because all the values and the rewards behind it. And so I guess that's why it goes back to the point. If you have the expense or if you're not paying off credit cards, there's going to be an issue because the interest you pay is going to outweigh. That 23% is the equivalent of losing 23x in points, basically.
Yep.
And so, to your point, yes, there's not typically a wide range in difference for someone that has a 720 score versus an 800 score and the interest rate that they're going to get on a card, because usually that card's going to dictate the rate itself just by the type of card that it is. Now, for some in the more of the intro level or entry level cards or credit union cards, bank cards, those are going to be a little bit different. But when we're talking these points and miles cards, it doesn't matter how perfect your credit score is, you're going to have likely a high interest rate. But this goes back to that point. The interest rate shouldn't matter because you shouldn't be spending anything that's not going to be able to be paid off. Now, obviously, things happen. Sometimes, just life happens, right? But for the most part, 99.9% of your payments should be to completely pay the card off. So even if the interest rate was 100% theoretically, it shouldn't be relevant if you're paying the card off on time every time.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah. Pay it off on time. Don't spend more than you have. That's how you use the tools and you get the benefits of everything that comes along with the card you get.
So, Julian, from a real estate standpoint, because you talked about your real estate properties, but as a real estate agent, and I know you also run a team, manage a team, so you have a lot of expenses. I mean, your expenses are layered in a lot of different ways. But where do you find that you're typically accruing most of your points from an earning standpoint? Can you explain a little bit of where you're spending to earn all of the points that you do?
So as a realtor, I can't even just say it's a realtor's perspective because as an independent contractor in any industry, you're going to have very comparable expenses. You're going to have marketing expenses. You're going to have travel expenses. You're going to have going out expenses. You're going to have a lot of other things, but a lot of that can come down to the marketing and the branding. Another one of my statements is you are the brand. So Iron Valley Real Estate is a company that I own, that I partnered with, but I am my own personal brand. DeAndre, you are your own personal brand. We all have to remember that you are your own brand. So however you decide to look at it that way, that's an expense in itself. Are you buying stuff that's branding you? Are you buying your marketing materials? Are you paying for ads to be somewhere? Are you putting yourself in a place that is going to cost to be in that room? Are you doing self-help seminars? Are you going to school somewhere? I mean, there's so many other ways that you can layer that you're going to spend the money anyway. Just put it on something that's going to give you the points to allow you to get there. Because a lot of that stuff's not even in town. Or let's just say you're local. You're just getting started as a realtor, right? Okay. You're going to have to get your class done. You're going to have to go to get your background check done. Your 60 hours. You're going to have to continue to pay for your continued education. You're going to have to continue to get marketing materials to put yourself out there. You're going to have to continue to pay either a cap or a monthly fee or whatever it is, depending on whatever brokerage you're hanging with. There's other fees associated with. The only way that's going to not make sense is if they have a processing fee. And most people do. So let's just say there's like a 3.5% processing fee, and it's going to outweigh the benefit of the points that you're going to get. Or even if it's a break even, it's fine. But if it's outweighing it, that it's costs more money to pay on that source, that's the only other time that I will ACH or I will pay with a debit card. And that happens. It actually happens more than people think. But you have to know what you're getting into. Some people just swipe to swipe, and you get to that level, then that's fine. But you want to be, as a realtor, and the average realtor in the country makes 30, 50 grand a year. That's the average on what they're making. And that's majority of realtors. So if you're in that price range, every penny counts. I don't care if you're making $1 million, every penny counts. You just got to make sure that you're paying attention to what the processing fees will be. But there's so many things that you're going to have to go through as an independent contractor that everything should be a write-off. Everything should be a write-off that their CPA will allow to be. And there's a lot more out there than you think. So pay attention. I mean, just put everything on that. Make sure it's on auto pay. That's another catch too. Let's just say there's 1 month you mess up. You don't allocate that month. That hour or two that you're meant to do all your stuff and check it, it's a week that you're on vacation. And you just didn't do it. You forgot. Every card is still set up on an auto pay. Now, you're going to be getting smack in the face with that interest rate you're going to pay on it, but you're not going to miss a payment. That's another thing that you need to make sure you do on there. So at least put that down on every card. I have it. And it's happened to me before. I'm not perfect, but it doesn't happen all the time. But you want to have that auto pay set up and make sure it's coming out from the account that is associated with the credit card, because you want to make sure you're layering it correctly. So if you have a business account and you have a business credit card, make sure it's coming out of that business bank account. If you have a personal, same thing. And it's just easier from a back end if you're doing your own accounting, which a lot of people are. And the average realtor is going to have their realtor account and their personal account. That's the average person is only going to have 2 accounts. So that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And that one right there, just make sure all the expenses come out of there. Everything's taxed for, everything's tracked, etc. And if you're paying yourself or however you're deciding to get into there, it's only coming out of 2 accounts. The trackability on that is super simple. And then you pay somebody to make sure they're filing their taxes correctly. And if you're paying them, whatever that fee is, in theory, they should be saving you that in taxes.
And talking about everyone makes mistakes, candidly and transparently, I make mistakes as well. I have a great example. Talk about auto pay. So I'm on my third business platinum right now. Back in, I think this was maybe December or November, I got the current third one. Thought it was on auto pay. It wasn't. Like I was on vacation, I see a $40 late pay charge from Amex. I've had an Amex card for over 10 years now. I've never missed a payment on an Amex card ever. $40 late pay. My heart's beating. I'm like, oh my God, how did I make this mistake? I call up Amex. Yeah, this is the platinum line. I call them and said, hey, I made this mistake. It's never happened before. The guy was like, oh, absolutely understand. Hey, we'll remove this for you. We'll reimburse the $40 charge. I was like, perfect. Thought I put the card on auto pay. I didn't. And the next month got hit with another $40 late fee again. And I probably could have called them and been like, hey, sorry, this happened again. But I didn't. I just owned it and said, you know what? Like, I deserve this. And the card is 100% auto pay now. But I say that for the listeners to know, as you said, none of us are perfect. And I'm happy to be transparent and talk through my mistakes, the things that I've done right and wrong from a points and miles and credit card standpoint. Because yes, even though I'm a financial advisor and I run a business and I do all these different things, I can still make a simple mistake as not putting an Amex card on auto pay. And even after getting dinged for it once, forgetting to do it after the fact again, which is absolutely applicable. And Julian, you mentioned something that I think is important as well. You start talking about real estate agent, then you refined what you had said to be a 1099 or independent contractor. And I think that's really important because oftentimes on this show, we talk about the fact that you may be eligible for a business card. You may own a business even though you don't think you're a business owner. Now, I know most real estate agents are kind of wired through the teachings of different real estate firms and such that, hey, you're a business owner. But there's plenty of people that are 1099 for nannying, for driving Uber, for what they sell on Etsy and Facebook Marketplace, and they don't view themselves as a business owner, but it's the same as someone who's got a real estate business where they're making $300,000-$400,000 a year selling homes. And that's what when I go in, I speak at different businesses and real estate offices, and I talk through why having an LLC makes sense. Again, this is on the financial planner side, but why having an LLC makes sense, filing as an S Corp, all these different things are layered. But you can open up a business account or a business credit card specifically under a sole proprietorship as an independent contractor. So all of that is absolutely important to know that it's possible to be able to get business credit cards, the things we're talking about that don't report to your credit, even though you may not have a huge business. So whether you're making $5,000 a year as an independent contractor in something, a side hustle, or you're making $500,000 a year, all that's very doable. So Julian, I think you've laid out a really good foundation for someone that's kind of newer in the world, obviously, to points and miles, but giving some background on what's possible.
You know, it's funny you say that because a lot of the people that I've worked with over time, I've been very blessed to be around. I've worked with a lot of people, let's just say that, in the comedy world and in the music world. And a lot of the gems that were dropped on me over the years is that not everyone's perfect. And see people on these pedestals that they're killing it and they're funny or they're just killing these shows, selling out arenas or whatever the case may be. And that's dope. But the reality is, they're not by themselves. Like they got the team behind them that make sure they can keep focusing on what they're really good at because everyone's not good at everything. There's just no way around it. So once you get to that level and you're working to it, I mean, I'm just starting to get an assistant. I'm just starting to get people to help me that I can trust around me to do that. I mean, that's just where it has to go. And there's levels of this stuff. Drake says it the best. There's definitely levels to it. And the number one thing you got to do is just get in the game, though. I was in the game without really knowing I was in the game. Then I just started paying attention. But we could always refine our game plan as we move along because there's a lot of pivots that happen in this credit card world. And that's the cool thing about your podcast because you just put so much information out there on how some stuff changes all the time. I mean, I was actually about to book a trip to Dubai for my birthday, and you dropped some knowledge about the Emirates points not being valid with the Amex Platinum transfers and at this drop dead point. And I was like, darn it, because it was like 50-50. I didn't know if I was going to do it or not. I'm not doing it now. And it has nothing to do with the points. I'm just not going to do it. But that affected me. Like thousands of dollars affected me from a travel perspective because I know I have X amount of points on the Amex Platinum card that I can do that in. But it's just always ABL, always be learning, always having people around you that can listen, you can learn from, drive around. I'm a DJ by heart and I drive around listening to podcasts all day. I don't even listen to music anymore. That's a con of mine because I got to actually take time to do that. But listening to stuff that's always programming me to understand what's in the know is only going to help people. Like, especially in the position of leadership that I'm in now at the brokerage, they come to me for a lot of questions. So I have to be on my A game to the best of my ability. And if I don't have the answer, I'm going to get it for 'em. But it's more so just paying attention and being intentional by getting in the game and not just watching and listening. Because you can watch and listen to this all day. What are you going to do after the fact, though?
So, Julian, what step can someone, a newer business owner or a business owner that hasn't gone down the rabbit hole, or not even down the rabbit hole, gone into this world of points and miles, what one step that they can use to start using points more effectively, or even to start earning it? What would be some your words of wisdom for someone that's like, yeah, I've heard something about that, but I'm not really sure where to start. And they could already be experienced in business. They could have a multi-million-dollar empire they've already been building as well. Regardless of size of business, what would be a piece of advice that you would give?
So Jay-Z said it the best. He said, I'm not a businessman. I'm a business man. What does that mean? He basically opened an LLC underneath his name so everything ran through his business. Now, I'm not saying that everybody needs to jump out there and get an EIN and open one today, but why I say that is because everyone in their own right is a business person because you're doing business in some way. I don't care what level it's at, but if you're trying to get in the game, look at if you've already been doing this and you feel you've been doing it wrong, look at your statements. Look at what your money that you've been spending on. Tally it up. See where it's going. See what's going in and out. If you don't have a P&L, start. If you don't have an expense sheet, start. If take 10 minutes, do it today. Take 10 minutes, do it tomorrow. Like just start doing something because you're going to be surprised when you start seeing what comes in and out. And then get intentional. See how you're spending that money. Is it only coming out of that bank account? Is it very consistent every month that you're spending that money anyway? Tally that number up and you're spending $500 a month on Facebook ads because whatever business that you're in, well, guess what? You can put that on a credit card. That's going to be an on-time payment plus you're getting points out of the back end. Because then you're going to look at it, how many trips you take a year. Or you took 5 trips, 2 were vacations, 3 were to down the street and like 20 minutes away to a seminar that came to town that cost you $100 to attend. Or was it free? I don't know. But you're spending money or time in some way. You want to be in a position where you can track it. So it's only going to benefit you when it's time to spend more. Because everyone's going to spend more.
Absolutely. And to that point, because you said there's levels to this, and I'm going to actually go back a little bit to something that you said, which was in reference to transaction fees, because you had said, if you spend on a credit card and the transaction fee outweighs the value of points you're going to get, you might want to watch out for that, which is 100% true, especially for someone that's newer into this world. But as you grow in this and you get more knowledge, understanding how to use those points, the transaction fees become less and less of a concern. Because I know that if I use a card that's going to, for instance, get me 2x on my spend, but I got to pay a 3x transaction fee, all I have to do is double the value of my points for simple math. If I can get 2x of value for every point I just earned, then essentially on that card spend, I got 4x of value in combination of how I spent it and how I redeemed it. So that's still more than the 3x fee I paid or 3% fee that I paid. So there's levels to this. And we've talked about how my average redemption each year is probably close to around 6 cents per point or 6x. So I know that with my average, unless there's a transaction fee that's 7% or higher, which I don't think I've ever seen, I don't really worry about the transaction fees. And that's a place that you can eventually get to. But when you start, you want to understand that there's always a deeper path when it comes to this world of points and miles, credit card rewards, luxury travel, and such, which I think is important to point out. So, Julian, before we wrap up here, I'd love to hear, you mentioned the Dubai opportunity. You decided, hey, let's pass on that. But I'd love to hear what's been one of the coolest trips you have taken so far using some of the points. I know you're busy. Like you said, you have multiple businesses. You got 5 kids, which we've laughed about over the years. So you don't get a ton of time to travel. Your wedding was dope. You didn't use points for that. But what would be one of the coolest trips you've taken with points so far?
It's funny you said that. I actually did use points for the wedding, but not the entire thing because I couldn't pay for my suit with points. So actually, that one and my Japan and Philippines trip last year, I'll kind of give you, it was a combination of cash and points, right? I didn't utilize for everything. And most of the time, both of those trips were international. So correct me if I'm wrong here, you get more bang for your buck when you're traveling international when it comes from a points to partner redemption in some way, shape, or form. So in that scenario, let's talk about the wedding, which was this year. From a hotel perspective, I wasn't able to utilize the actual hotel stay there for points. I just wasn't able to. However, I did get a Hyatt credit card prior to doing that. So I had the money cash. I put everything on there on top of the wedding expense on there. Now I have over almost 250,000 points on there because there was a bonus structure involved. And now we're taking a trip on that later this year with the points that I did for my wedding. But I had Amex points before that, and I had to pay for 9 flights to get there, and it covered all my flights. So, and I say I kind of paid for my wedding. I paid for us to get there because it was in Jamaica. So we had to leave from, Virginia to Jamaica. Those flights were covered internationally, at least. And by the way, it was just normal seats. I was paying for 8 or 9 people. I didn't put everyone in first class or anything. If it was my wife and I decided a different story, but I had to pay for a lot of people. So I put them on the flight and I was able to get there and back. That was most important. Then I paid for the actual wedding. I paid for the actual rooms that we had there on a Hyatt credit card, but I had a bonus on there. Don't quote me. It might have been like 100,000 points at the time, but I know I had to spend the cash on top of that. So I've only utilized that Hyatt card for that wedding and then my suits and then all the other stuff that we had to get. And so far I have, I think, 238,000 points to be exact. I just looked at it earlier today because we're looking at spending that for another Hyatt trip later this year. So that was a kind of a double win in my opinion, because it was money I was already going to spend anyway, right?
Right, absolutely. And I'll jump in before you cover the Japan piece, because a couple of pieces on that. Any spend that you put while at Hyatt or for like Hyatt expenses on that card gets like 9x on points, right? So that was a huge boost. And for the listeners out there, I would go back and check out that episode on the Hyatt Zilara, which was episode 65, because if you're looking for an amazing adults only or even family stay, Taryn and I talk about this amazing resort. Some of the stuff that we talked about in our stay, like how we use the Mobay VIP for arrival and departure, actually came from Julian, was his recommendation for us to do that. So some of our advice and tips that we actually give in that episode came from Julian. So I'd highly recommend that you take a look at that. So Julian, that was amazing. You sent a family of 8 tickets, I should say, using your Amex points, racked up a ton of points on Hyatt specifically because it is a Hyatt property. So that was a great way to both redeem and accrue more points. Tell us more about the Japan trip.
The plan was Japan and then the Philippines. So my wife has a ton of family in the Philippines. So it was a very intentional trip. We planned this. Our flights were all covered through our Amex points over the course of let's talk about 3 credit cards that had anywhere from 150 to 250 add-on points that I used strategically, because you don't just plan to go to Japan and Philippines tomorrow. You plan that probably a year in advance. So knowing that we plan our trips an entire year in advance, we typically fourth quarter, we plan out next year on at least the dates that we want to do. Now, that's a trip that we intentionally plan, but if we don't have that, we know we want to take a week here, a week there, we'll figure it out after the fact. We just take that time that we know that we're being intentional, be present with the family. So that one was more just the flights were covered. So regular flights and no first class, no anything. I'm relatable to the everyday person. It was 5 of us that ended up going all the way over there. And there was multiple flights though. It was not just from here to Japan. Then we had to go to Japan to the Philippines. The only flights that we actually paid for there, because when you're in the Philippines, they have so many other airlines that are not like popular, and they were like $50 round trip. There was nothing. So those are the ones that I really paid out of pocket there. But then obviously the round trip back was covered as well. The stays there, we ended up staying at a Hilton. I opened the Hilton card to get points. And then that was cash money though, but I use that because if I'm going to spend the money, at least I'm going to get something on the back end that I can use for another trip. So I can almost get like a 2-for-1. That's how I look at every time I open a credit card, that there's a 2-for-1 option. I'm going to spend the money anyway. At least I'm going to get something in the back end. So my trip was my flights were covered because of me able to transfer all the points over at the time. I forgot what airline it was, bro. I wish I could drop it. Definitely wasn't Emirates. It was an airline that was specific that travels to Japan or that side of the world a lot. I forgot what it was. And it was like a 2x value. It was maybe like 1.5x value. It wasn't crazy, but it was enough. And all I had to do was switch it from here and put it here. That's all I had to do. So when I did that, that covered all our trips. And I think I just had to pay taxes on this one, a few $100, nothing too crazy. And obviously I paid for all the stuff over there out of pocket, try to stay at all the Hilton properties we can. It was enough to gain another like 12 nights at Hilton, regardless where I got, depending on category, obviously. But why did I do that? Because that's super basic. To be fair, DeAndre, like what you guys do is mad advanced. You go to different levels and I transfer here and I transfer here and I do this and I do that. If you wanted to be brilliant at the basics, is what my mentor always tells me. If I know I'm going to spend the money at a big name property, get a credit card for that property or that airline with bonuses in there, 50,000 points to 100,000 miles, whatever it is, spend it, hit that ratio, and then use the points for something else. That's super basic. Like that's like as basic as remedial as it can get. And if you're not going to do it that way, then I don't know what else to tell you. Just get a credit card that's going to affect what you want to do most. And with me, at this phase of my life is traveling. I love it, but you get the most bang for your buck that day. Do I still have 2 or 3 cashback cards? Yes, but I don't use them often. I have them just because they're on my personal, and I'm not going to close out cards that are going to affect my history that way because they have good history. But on those cards, those three ones that I've had for so long, one of them pays Netflix, one of them pays Apple Music, the other one pays Spotify because I'm a DJ and I need those. And they're like $10, $20 a month payments that are on auto pay, but I'm getting on time payments every month. And that makes me look a lot better. And that's on a personal side. So even if you open that card and you had it for a minute, never close it out. Put one small payment on there and just let it ride until it expires and then re it up. That's it.
Well, it's funny because you said that, we do a lot more advanced stuff and transferring and going back and forth. And you also said that you're not going to go to Japan like tomorrow. These are all the things that we can do in our world of not having 5 kids. So that's
ding, ding, ding.
So if we wanted to, go to Japan tomorrow, we could very easily figure that out with our points bucket. Awesome, Julian. I think this has been fantastic. I know for some of the individuals that follow this podcast that are heavily involved in points and miles, we didn't go down any specific rabbit holes, but I wanted this one to be a little bit more surface level because there's people that are always listening to this podcast that are brand new and they're trying to figure out where to start. I think this was very helpful to just give some people some scope of how points and miles can kind of change the game on their daily lives. And so I appreciate you being on the show today. Where can the listeners follow you? Because you are my local celebrity. So where can they follow you and all the things that you do across all the platforms?
Well, before I drop where they can follow me at is getting in the room is the most important part. Starting somewhere. Everyone's on the sideline at some point. You can get on the bench and then you can get on the court. But why are you waiting to get on the court? You already have the skills because you're listening. This is the training that you need. Just go open a card. You're probably in a better shape than you think and you're overthinking it. You're talking to somebody that had a sub 500 credit score. Now I'm in a really good position to own multiple companies. I didn't go to college. I graduated high school at 17 and I just started working. So I'm just saying that I can relate to everybody because even as a realtor, I don't show up in a suit and tie. I'm in a t-shirt, some jeans, and some Jordans. That's my vibe. That's my style, but I know what I'm talking about. So if I can get in the room in the way that I look and where I came from and without my formal education, y'all are probably 10 steps ahead of me. And you're just overthinking it. So get in the room, figure it out. And if you're going to follow me, we have a podcast that we have as well called Your Peak Life Podcast. We have a lot of local talent on the area. We also have celebrities coming up as well, and also state delegates, senators, and more. And the reason why is because we talk about your peak life can be in any industry. It could be at any point in time of your life. And typically when you hit a peak, you want to hit another peak, aka another goal. So we like to see where people's gone and we talk about where your journey has started and where it's going because nothing's ever ended. You just hit a goal and you go to the next one. So we'll have DeAndre on there soon so you can hear his story from him not being the host because I'll host that one and I'll be the one asking all the questions. But we'll have him on that episode as well. But Your Peak Life Podcast, Spotify, Apple Music, and on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, TikTok at DJ Julian Rivera, DJJulianRivera.com. Yes, I am a DJ. I didn't talk mostly about that, but I do perform pretty much up and down the East Coast. DeAndre, if he was another job and he could start life all over again, he would be a DJ. If you did not know that, the fun fact, he has been at plenty of my parties in front of hundreds and thousands of people, and he's actually a really good hype man. If you don't believe it, he won't post about it, but you got to see it in person. He's actually pretty damn good. So that is a fun fact about me. But from a real estate perspective, real estate is my primary thing. I love helping individuals get into the room, into a house, or sell the house, or at least start the game in investing. DeAndre talks about getting into cards and hacking and doing points. A lot of people don't even know or want or have the inkling to get into real estate investing. DeAndre owns properties too. He knows it. We've done this for years, but that's a whole nother ballgame that we can talk about because getting in that room changes a lot more lives than you think. It's just having the knowledge on it. But again, at DJ Julian Rivera, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, the whole 9 yards. DeAndre, thanks for having me, dude.
Absolutely, Julian. And I think it's really cool to say how important it is to get in the room and how you said, hey, you graduated high school at 17. You started working at a sub 500 credit score. This is not a growth mindset podcast like yours is, which is a fantastic show. But I do think it's important to throw that in there because of the fact that by you getting in the rooms, I mean, you've flown on private jets, you've been around celebrities, you know, many celebrities on a first name basis. Those names people would hear or would easily recognize on the show. And so that's why it's important to just surround yourself with great people because iron sharpens iron. You help out in real estate with me. I help out in the financial planning and points and miles world with you. And having people like that in your circle is super helpful. And so, Julian, always a pleasure. Get a chance to chop it up with you, hang out with you, and thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate it, man. Tell Taryn I said hi.
Will do. Awesome. For the listeners out there, hopefully you found this episode helpful. Hopefully it was able to set the tone and the right mindset for yourself in the space of points and miles and travel in general, and just how you can elevate things a little bit better. Everyone's journey is different. As Julian mentioned, we all have a peak that we want to hit, but when we hit a peak, ideally we want to hit that next peak. The same thing can happen in travel and points and miles. And that's why this podcast is about revolutionizing your journey, because we're trying to revolutionize your ability to travel. And when you hit that peak redemption, we want you to go for the next one and the next one and the next one, and to revolutionize the way you guys travel in the future, doing it in the most financially responsible ways possible as well. As always, really appreciate your time today and listening in the show. Julian, thank you for being here. And if you liked the episode, please like, subscribe, tell your friends, all the things, and we will catch you on the next episode. Take care.